Hmm. Oh. Yes.
I'm Jupiter Exile, and I didn't like God of War 4. I played the game in late 2022, and I knew I didn't like it after 6 hours, but I felt I had to get through the game to justify my opinion. I wound up going as far as to kill all the Valkyries on the normal difficulty, and I did some of the optional content too. It was it was mid. My first script of this was longer, but I put myself to sleep trying to edit down the gameplay footage. There's so much empty time in this game. And so I ultimately shelved that video. I want to get that back. So I've condensed my critique down to just 2 points so that I can show something for the time. My first issue with the game is that it uses this all too common rarity loot structure, the green, blue, purple thing. If this system is in a game, that game is about loot and the guys you kill with that loot and the loot that those guys drop to allow you to kill the next guys. Sometimes that can be interesting if in like somewhat in Borderlands. I don't like Borderlands very much, but it's pretty interesting in Diablo and Grim Dawn. At least the earlier Diablo games, not the more recent Diablo games. I'm not touching those with a 10-foot pole. A lot needs to move around those systems in order for it to work. There are big sacrifices to fit this in a game. And more often in the modern day, we're seeing developers try to shoehorn this in. In God of War 4, this system adds an incredible amount of bloat that we didn't have in the earlier God of War titles. You see the same puzzles and interactions reused again and again. There are bland filler enemy encounters and thin side quests, sometimes actual grinding, because you need to get materials to drop so you can craft something better. And your gear score artificially locks out enemies by changing their hit stun reactions. They don't do anything different. They don't even necessarily have more health. It takes the same number of hits to kill them because they have more health, but you also do more damage. The interaction is not meaningfully different, but the game bars you from fighting them effectively because they, play like super baddies until you just spend time to overcome them instead of improving your skill. I didn't feel any difference in build choices between the items. I got upgrades that could have been handed to me the same way that upgrades were handed to me in older games. Older God of War games still had upgrades. You can still upgrade the character's health bar, their magic, their rage, all that stuff can still exist. But the way it exists in God of War 4 is just so much is built around it. It's a huge waste of time. And the game shows it with all that bloat, all that boring stuff that I couldn't even be bothered to edit because there's so much like boating around and running through whatever space. My second issue is that God of War 4 is actually secretly like a Resident Evil game or a Gears of War game. Kratos doesn't control like Kratos, or even he doesn't control like a brawler character at all. Like Bayonetta or Dante or Chai, he doesn't control anything like that. The camera is over your shoulder and it's often unnecessarily close. So there's an artificial difficulty in managing enemies that are off screen or behind you as if it's a horror game. Sometimes your screen will get cluttered up with these indicators that there are enemies behind you, and you have to like use this quick turn mechanic to like pivot the character to actually turn around and hit them and see them. This has never been necessary in a brawler game before. Where it's necessary is Resident Evil 4, because Kratos controls like Chris Redfield or Leon. Your axe throw is mechanically the same thing as like an aim down sights and then shoot. You ready the axe and you throw it the same way a Resident Evil character would level a shotgun and shoot it, but shooting a shotgun in a Resident Evil game feels good, and your axe tickles enemies until you get a zillion upgrades for it. And the axe throw doesn't even cooperate with your melee until you've gotten upgrades that make it cooperate with your melee, and then it becomes a functional part of the system. If, like, an easy redesign is if you just had attack combos that ended with you doing an axe throw that automatically tracked onto somebody, or you had combos that began with an axe recall, and it doesn't really have those. You do have something, you can get a buff by doing an axe throw with a perfectly timed recall. The perfect throw mechanism is good, like in terms of feel, once you unlock it, but you have to unlock it. It's not there at the baseline. Yeah. I I don't know how much experience this team had with the games they were trying to iterate upon. There are very important reasons why the earlier God of War games are a fixed, far away camera. You have a gratifying melee swing that dominates a lot of the screen, and God of War 4 is just a claustrophobic, slow slog. Thank you.